Sorry that the title, How Are We Doing 1 Year Later, is basically misleading. There was a subtitle that was part of the summary that I wrote up at the end that I guess didn't make it to the right person and didn't get posted. Um, but it basically said more about this workshop. It described us as a workshop that was being put forward by the Member Services Committee, and it was basically with the same model that took place at last year's 2024 summit, the visioning workshop, visioning the future of NAUA. So we're going to be doing the same kinds of things in this workshop, except I'm going to begin by sharing some of the origins of the Member Services Committee and what our action plan looked like and how far we've actually gotten or not gotten through the items on that action plan. And then, of course, I'm going to be making a pitch for more members. So basically, after I received all of the notes from last year's visioning process, I collated them in the same way that, if you were doing a research study. And so I had them ranked ordered in terms of responses. And then I also created a summary. And if anybody wants those and would like to see them, or if you've expressed a desire to know more about the Member Services Committee, and I already have your names, I'll just send it to you. If I don't have your name, please send me judi.durham@gmail.com your email address, and I can send and tell me what you want, and I'll send those things to you. So the Member Services Committee was both basically created to serve the needs of individuals, fellowships, and congregations. And in some ways you might say, well, that's what NAUA is set up to do. I think the difference is that one of the things that we have made a commitment to doing is communicating with members, communicating with the fellowships, and finding out what people want and need. And this visioning workshop, I hope, is something that happens at every summit. But the other way that we have designed that kind of communication is that we are now putting in every single compass the news and events that Joanne sends out twice monthly. Whatever is going on, but also there is always our email address so that if people have questions, concerns, ideas, etc., they have a way to immediately respond to us and share with us what they're thinking. When our web page gets launched, which I hope it's soon, Joanne's been so tied up with the summit that she hasn't had time to do much more with that, which I can totally understand. And there's many parts of it ready to go, and there will be a communication box on the web page where anybody who wants to send a message, idea, a thought to Member Services Committee can do that. And then depending on what it is, we'll respond, etc. So as I said, communication is one of our main goals, and we set up three major headings of what our purposes are. Engagement is one, so creating opportunities for members to interact, to network, to feel a sense of community, and have a greater connection to NAUA as well as other members. And I think that place where that you can see this the most is not only in those notices that we put on in the compass, but also in our development of regional groups.
Oh,
Retention, that's our our plan, our hope is that we can continue to retain our membership as well as recruit new members. So retention and recruitment. And we know that in retention, we'll need to be providing the services that folks want, which is why we're asking people what it is that they want and need from NAUA. And there was a lot of suggestions last night in the last night here, yesterday afternoon for you all, or most of you, except for Reverend Twinkle. So there was a lot of suggestions last night in the, how was it framed? The one about starting a new fellowship or congregation, anyway. So I have lots more ideas to take back to the Member Services Committee. And recruitment, we haven't done a lot with. We had some ideas and some thoughts early on that maybe we'd be able to use the regional groups if they got going strong as sort of a communication vehicle to find out who those people are that probably would love to join NAUA, or who the fellowship is, where they are that might benefit from becoming a member of NAUA. So those are the only ideas that we have. We haven't done anything active about recruitment, but it's because of that sort of objective that we have in terms of recruitment. It made sense that the prior membership committee should just be rolled into this member services committee, and that is what's happening. The membership committee was basically disbanded, and the member services committee has taken on that function. So our action plan is lengthy, but we actually managed to get through the first half. We had a list of priorities that we were going to attempt to do this year. And basically, we've done most of them with varying success. The first thing we did was change the welcome letter that new members get when they join. And this letter goes out automatically. And we made the letter longer to basically describe a little bit more about NAUA, because not everyone who is joining necessarily knows the whole scope or the whole story of NAUA. We had hoped to also have a list of all of the programs go out with that letter, and that provided a great deal of technical difficulty. So now we're just going to have that listing on our webpage. Our desire was to increase communication by initiating a member services corner in the Liberal Beacon, and that ended up being we always now have something in the compass relative to what we're doing. We have plans, and they are in the works, to create a member services webpage with links to all kinds of other programs within and external to NAUA, the links to the services that we have developed or will be developing. And as I mentioned, that communication box where people can communicate with us. the final item was development of virtual regional NAUA groups, hoping that they would lead to more in-person connections or connections in smaller groups where people could feel a deepened sense of community. Um, we have one group that has been actively functioning, although with falling numbers. And I plan on working with them to figure out some ways that maybe they can break up into smaller groups and have more success in continuing. We have a couple of groups that the leaders decided that they didn't have time for this, understandable. So we will also be recruiting more leaders for several of the regions. And the New England group hasn't gotten off the ground yet, but we're hopeful that it will within the next month. The items that were part of our action, the second part of our action plan are things that we've put off or have changed. The first one was creating a video describing what NAU is for use on perhaps the homepage of NAUA, or for people to use to share with potential new members. What we do have all ready to go on our webpage is actually a slideshow that Joyce Francis created originally for her group and then her congregation fellowship. um, and because they are still in the discussion phase of whether or not they're going to join NAUA. She then upgraded that to a video, and I'm not sure whether or not we'll have enough bandwidth to take that video and actually change some of the pieces that make it more generic or not. Anyway, but there's conversation about that, and the original slideshow will be on our webpage. We had talked about creating classes for children and adults and ethical, moral, and civil responsibility, and that sort of has morphed into discussions about creating RE materials over the lifespan, so not just for kids, but also for adults. Um, and then our very last item was uh, I think we can hear somebody. Anyway, development of training materials for lay leaders, including worship services, pastoral care, memorial services, and marriage ceremonies. And this has come up several times in conversations over the summit. And it's also what the Strategic Plan Implementation Committee has asked for the Member Services Committee to do. So basically, we would like to do all of those things that we haven't, and what we need is more people on the committee. The committee at one point in time was up to 6 people. We are now down to 3. So at this point, all we could probably do is continue to manage the regional groups and not much more. We have great ambition that we will get enough people so that we can really do all of these things. Um, and we know how important these things are. We know that they've been asked for. We know that they're needed. So we need a tech person who can create and edit videos. We would like people who are interested in helping us develop materials for lay leaders, like how to do a worship service, a memorial service, a marriage ceremony, etc. a person to take over communications with and support of the regional groups. We need more regional group leaders. Let's see. And we need people who are invested in listening to what members want and need, communicating with members, so that we can keep abreast of what their needs are. And we need creative people to develop new programs, activities, events, etc. If you're interested, send me an email, judi.durham@gmail.com, and tell me what your interests are. So now we're going to break up into our groups. I think we have,
We do have a question from Cheryl has got her hand up.
sure, Cheryl?
Um, if you can direct me as to where I can read, maybe it's in a compass or something, about what the regional groups are. I've seen a lot of things about circles and various kinds of circles, but I don't know anything about I don't remember anything about the regional groups, but I've been
Okay,
kind of unconnected for a while, and I'm just coming back, so.
great. Cheryl, can you send me your emails? Just send me an email and put information on regional groups in it.
Okay.
Thanks.
But you can explain what a regional group is. There might be others who don't know.
Sure. What we did is we said that we were going to create large regional groups. For instance, the one in the Pacific Northwest takes in the area of the Pacific Northwest in the US and the southern tier of British Columbia. And our sense was that by starting the regional groups online, we have a dedicated Zoom account to be able to run these groups. And that the groups would basically be a conduit for smaller people, smaller groups of people to get together and be able to meet in person. Or they could create smaller groups that were geographically more connected so that people could meet perhaps online even to create a sense of community. And we also have a calendar because we couldn't have more than 2 meetings running at a time. We have a Google Calendar where people can sign up for their meeting times so that they won't be in conflict with other groups. And the content, which is one of the things that I want to do, is provide more suggestions to groups relative to the kinds of things that they might do for content. The group that's in North and South Carolina is already planning a potluck. And nobody is more than 2 hours. My understanding is nobody is more than 2 hours away from the central location, so that they're able to do that. That's also one of the things that I am hoping we can do in New England because Reverend Trinkle's probably the farthest one away. But if we hold something in northern Massachusetts, it's sort of equidistant from everybody. Is
And
that
we have a couple of other questions too.
Tom?
Yeah, go ahead, Thomas.
I had to mute myself. So
Sure.
do you really want us to be asking you these questions now, or do you want us to be giving through the small groups? Because I have a number of questions about the regional group. And so the question is, first of all, before we have a discussion on this, do you want me to do this through the small groups, or do you want to take the time to do this now?
Why don't you ask the question and then I'll figure out whether there needs to be a bigger discussion about
So,
this. Okay.
I've been wondering how many regional groups there were. I've been told that the one I belong to in the Pacific Northwest was the only one that had actually been organized. You're mentioning other groups. In the beginning of your presentation, you talked about thinking that these regional groups would be a conduit for information. And then later on, you talked about the groups being groups to create some sort of community on a regional level or a local level. So I've attended all of the regional group meetings here. I am the outer because I am I'm in the south end of Puget Sound, and most everybody else is north. In fact, everybody else who's come is north of Seattle. And Puget Sound runs about 120 miles from south to north. It's clear to me that folks got the message that this was to be a friendship group. So a lot of those people up there are meeting. For me, the only value of this group would be if it is a group that actually generates information and ideas for the larger NAUA. Now, that would be of value to me. That message has never come down to them. And I've brought it up to the chair, and she hasn't responded to me. And I'm not sure. I'm not sure that the group wants to discuss that. So I think maybe in the future you need to give these regional groups, whatever regional groups they are, and I think you sort of would like to do this, some ideas about what they could do, and it wouldn't just be. It might be a number of things.
I agree, Tom, and that is my plan. I think they need more assistance, more guidance of not only how to do this, but where to go with it. And, just saying to them, this is an opportunity to create community without helping them do that, I think is folly on our part. So I agree with what you're saying. And
The thing that I want to make here is what I've seen at the Pacific Northwest group is that attendance has gotten lower and lower. And I think what's happened is some people have connected with other people in that group and they're meeting those people. But the actual value of the group, because it's not doing anything together as a group, is diminished.
I agree. And Tom, I think you and I could probably talk about this a little bit more at another time, because I do want to get to the questions, which I think are equally as important. I'm not saying your concerns aren't. I just want to get to the question.
That's fine.
Okay. So Roy, do you have a quick question?
Yeah, just a comment. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, I can. Thanks.
Okay, great. So yeah, we just recently I just recently started exploring the idea of a regional group here in Northern California, and what I envisioned was us getting together periodically in person, but starting mainly via Zoom to get, because we're pretty spread out as well, Tom.
Yep.
We're spread out. I mean, we've got people up north of the Bay, out in the Central Valley, down south in the Santa Cruz and that area. So getting people together regularly is not very feasible. But I envision us getting together to try to gain a little bit of community, and on Zoom, hopefully, with the idea of having people develop more fellowships that are more local, and that's kind of what I envision it as. That's my 2 cents. Thanks.
That's great. And I think that's, I think different groups will decide among a range of possibilities, whether it's to create a fellowship, whether it's just to create a sense of community with people to have potlucks, whether it's get together and have a movie night. There's all kinds of possibilities. But I think it is imperative that the Member Services Committee provide a little more assistance and guidance, et cetera, about doing that. So thank you all for that. All right, so let's go into the breakout groups where we will stay until 1:15.
Judy, would you like me to put up the slide with the questions that you had?
That would be helpful, I think. Yes.
Okay. I hope you can see that.
Yes. So Terry, are you recording all three groups?